Well, a divisive year on college campuses. Differing points of view. Controversial speakers sparked violent protests and outrage among students that challenged the boundaries of what freedom of speech means to higher education. University administrators told Politico they are preparing for another combative year. It could be worse this year, in fact. Joining me this morning, once again, I've got Jessica Tarlow, Democratic strategist and FNC contributor. Evan Siegfried, SOM Consulting president, is here, and Jason Meiser, Ackman Ziff Real Estate Group managing director and a former Trump surrogate. Guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, Jessica, you and I have talked about this before. I want to start with you on this issue of violence on campuses. Back in the 60s, it was Berkeley. Now, again, it's Berkeley in 2017 and other colleges.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, first of all, fundamentally dangerous. And I think the real issue here is that students have figured out that if they threaten violence, they can get speakers canceled that they don't want to see, or you end up paying $600,000 to get Ben Shapiro up there for an hour so that he can just tell you why he's pro-life. Right. It's really not that bad. I think that it's quite disturbing to see kind of what's happened to the understanding of what the First Amendment means, what hate speech actually is. And a lot of people are just saying, oh, it's things I disagree with, which we know it isn't. But the threat and the cost of making sure that you can ensure that free speech continues on college campuses is going to be terrible. I mean, not every institution can afford $600,000 to get a speaker there.
That was my question, though, Evan, is that why are these colleges clamping down? If I'm going to send my child off to college and pay God knows what in tuition, I want them to be safe. And these colleges don't seem to be they haven't gotten a handle on how to protect students.
Well, the vast majority of colleges have speakers who are non-controversial. They aren't Richard Spencer or alt-right figures or far-left figures. When I was in college, I went to Fordham University, which had the foreign minister of Iran come when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was saying the Holocaust didn't happen and Jews are responsible for everything bad in the world.
Okay.
There were
Tense
protests,
situation.
but nobody went out and committed an act of violence. When I go and I speak at college campuses, nobody even protests. I actually have kids come up to me and say, we're glad that nobody's protesting and we're able to share different points of view, but it's the more extreme elements on both sides of the aisle within college campuses that make things more difficult. And that is becoming a problem where more and more college students feel that if they aren't protesting, there's something wrong with them. There's an environment they feel that is being created, and they don't feel somebody is out there advocating for them just to listen to people that they differ with.
I also want to say, Jason, that, and I don't want to generalize here to all universities across the country, but it seems to me that there is a pretty liberal bias overall in higher education now, more so than I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, look.
That's something the professors, we've seen these professors push their own agendas on the students who are young and impressionable.
Yeah. It's a liberal hotbed. And I think you have to identify what the problem is. It really is coming from the left. It's an attack on the First Amendment, which is one of our most core American values. And it's a real problem. I think that when you see when Ann Coulter is planning to speak, or Milo Yiannopoulos, provocateurs on the right, they can't even speak. They can't speak. What they have to say is just shut down immediately.
So what happened, Evan, to both sides of the story? What happened to that? If you're sending off your child again to be educated, they need to see both sides of the spectrum, all sides of the world. I mean, that's the point of higher education.
There are people on the right who do go out, the Richard Spencers, the Milo Yiannopoulos, who want that protest because that allows them to say, look, we're persecuted, and it reaffirms what they've been saying all along. And there are outside groups that do come in and protest them, be they from the right and the left. I think there are people out there who do want to have real conversations. I think Yale University's college Republicans handled it great over the last spring when the college Democrats were having a hunger strike to protest something horrible Israel was doing. So how did Yale handle it? Their counter-protest was a barbecue right next to them, and it was brilliant. It caused these kids who were already hungry to say, wait a second, maybe this is a little dumb, and I want some good barbecue.
That's interesting, Jessica. Do you think that colleges, again, as we look to this warning about 2018, do you think that there are better ways that they can handle what we're going to see? Because we don't want to cover another violent protest at one of these colleges.
No, you absolutely don't. And I'm really glad that Evan brought up the point about hired protesters on both sides of the aisle.
They were not hired. I think they're outside groups who aren't in the college.
Yes, maybe not being directly paid by Milo or an Ann Coulter, but are certainly organized to show up and show resistance to this. I think that we will see more of it. I don't know. I'm not a police officer. I don't run campus safety. I don't know how to better regulate that. But I certainly do think that professors can do a better job. And I know there are more liberal professors than conservatives, but it is beholden to all of them to talk and educate better about what freedom of speech is and why you need to hear the other side. And frankly, it would be a lot easier for people to digest what happened in 2016 if they did listen to some of these figures. Because for better or for worse, Ann Coulter had a big effect on people. Steve Bannon did. Richard Spencer, unfortunately, did. And the rise of white nationalism and the alt-right in this country is an important force that needs to be reckoned with and understood. Now, I personally would not go listen to Richard Spencer speak. I even try to avoid his quotes when they come up in the news. I find him appalling on every level. But I do know what the philosophy is that he's espousing, and I understand it and the impact of it.
I like what you're saying, Jessica, because you're saying you can't bury your head in the sand, that you can't be educated on an issue if you don't know both sides of the issue.
Especially if you want to call yourself a fighter in the resistance.
Right.
That's the thing. If you don't understand what elected Donald Trump and what got him to the highest office in the world, you're doing yourself a disservice, and we may repeat our mistakes again in 2020.
Do you think that this is a bigger picture issue, that this is what's making the country, Evan, more divided? I mean, I don't think any of us have seen in 2016 the amount of divisiveness and anger and violence that we've seen in the country overall. Forget college campuses. I'm talking about the whole country.
I think we are siloing ourselves. I think people, especially in politics, want to feel where their views are confirmed. We don't see this in any other industry. You could like the Boston Red Sox, and I'm a huge Yankees fan, but we don't have some sort of violent, visceral reaction to one another. We respect one another, and that's what's lacking in our society. We need to have Americans that foster more understanding and dialogue.
Not all Red Sox fans and Yankees fans get along. I want to move on to something a little brighter.
Well, not all Red Sox fans make good life choices either. But
don't get me on football. We'll lose track. I do want to talk, though, about some good news for kids, Jason. I want to ask you about this. If your resolution is to pay off your student loan, and I don't know if you have one, for many graduates, the answer turns out it's no. 44 million Americans owe, get this, $1.4 trillion in student debt. It's seeping into other aspects of the economy. Housing, which I want to ask you about. Millennials are delaying purchasing homes. Instead, they're trying to deal with their student loans. Have you seen that in the real estate industry that you work in?
Yes, they're definitely staying in the rental market longer. They're definitely, if you see millennials have come down on the home purchase front, I think you're going to continue to see that. Unfortunately, I think that, and that's going to also delay people from upgrading into the larger homes, and so it's a problem.
It's interesting. I mean, the student loan problem, we've kind of gotten away from that issue, Evan, but it is still a daunting issue for many. I will say this, though, with unemployment at a 17-year low, I'm hoping that this will turn around.
Well,
this year.
$1.4 trillion, as you said, in student loan debt. And the average millennial who graduated from college in 2016 graduated with an average of $37,000 in student debt. Student debt is almost twice the amount of credit card debt in the United States for all Americans. And this is a massive bubble that we're going to need to deal with. Otherwise, it's going to trigger an economic crisis. We're seeing millennials make more and more delays in their own lives. They live with their parents longer. That's why they like being, or the Obamacare extended to 26, because they are essentially still living the college student life of ramen noodle diet and trying to pay everything off when you're getting $30,000, $40,000.
They liked the Bernie Sanders plan, where he said we're going to have to wipe away the student debt.
It's all free.
And the only reason Bernie Sanders is successful
it's not just about everything it's free. It's that it shouldn't have been a burden this large in the first place. That college should not be costing $50,000 a year. I think it's part of the argument.
I will say to millennials out there, I've said we've been kind of tough on you probably, but you have been saving. And there was some data that showed us that millennials are saving, so that's good news. Thank you, millennials. Thanks to my millennial panel.